You're listening to the Epic Stories podcast, presented by Earlham College. Here's your hosts, Tanaka and Carlton.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Epic Story podcast. Today we are going to be doing things differently. We're going to get to know the host. My name is Tanaka and I'm joined with
Carlton. Hey everyone.
Alright, so to start with, Carlton, we just want to get to know you a bit more. So how did you get to Earlham?
How did I get to Earlham? So I got to know about Earlham through UWC, which I know we both went to.
Yep.
I went to UWC East Africa, and you went to
UWC Robert Bosch.
Yeah, in Germany.
Yeah.
And so we had, was it Susan? There was Susan, and then also Erin came to visit the campus, and they told us about Earlham. And they told us about the different things that Earlham offers, like Epic Advantage and the Epic Centers. They told us about some of the on-campus things they do. And yeah, this is how I got to know Earlham. I also know Kim, who's a sophomore. You also know Kim.
Yeah.
So she was my friend. And so she was already here. And so I also got to know about Earlham through her. Yeah. How about you?
So I remember when I was in my second year, by that time I thought like I was going to stay in Europe because I wanted to study in Europe, right? But then that's when we had like a college fair, and then like what she said, Susan came, and then she started like describing Earlham, like how they have a small community, and then how it looks more like a UWC. So to be honest, like initially Earlham wasn't like my really first choice, so I was just like, okay, it's good to know this school, right? And then I started like learning more about the school. I actually remember watching one of, I think, Denzel Loy video and stuff, and then I was like, this school looks exactly like a UWC.
Yeah.
And then when the results came, like I had my rich schools, my dream schools, and then my safety option schools.
Yeah.
And then things didn't go out according to plan.
I see.
But then Earlham was there to save me, and then I found my way here.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Do you have like anything that has surprised you about being here so far? I know we haven't finished our first year yet, but we're almost actually finishing our first year, which is kind of crazy to me. Yeah. But do you have any like surprises?
I wouldn't say necessarily surprises, but then I would say generally before I came to Earlham, right? I was just, like I used to know the US through like watching TV shows and stuff. So I had like a different perspective of like how uni life is going to be.
Yeah.
For example, I thought like, there are going to be like a lot of perks, like you go to the dining hall, they're like the cool guys and then these guys and stuff. But then so far, when I came here, I just realized that like Earlham is more like a UWC. I think you can agree. It's just like a small community, and then we have those like intimate connections and relationships.
Yeah, I think I agree. I also like definitely only knew about America from the content that I was watching, like TV shows, movies, YouTube and stuff. So coming to Earlham, I had like, I would say my expectations were like really, really high, and for like generally being in the US. And so I think I was surprised at how small the school was. I know they told us that it's a small community, and that was also like one of the things that I was looking for in a school. But I was surprised like how small it actually is. Like I may not like know everyone personally, but like I know the faces, and
I can relate.
And I see the faces and things like that. Yeah.
All right. So I'm just wondering, like we both went to UWC. So far, do you think there is like some form of like connection or between like Earlham and UWC when it comes to the values and the missions that there's?
I see. I think so. I think in UWC they try to get us to instead of focusing solely on academics, they try to get us to do extracurricular activities and all these things, right? A kind of holistic approach to education, which I think is also similar to Earlham. And then Earlham also has where we can try out so many different classes, right? And try out a number of different things before we have to pick something. So I think those are two things that UWC and have in common.
I think it would be really great if you could share some of these activities so that we can brag about UWC. Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like some of the activities that, for example, that you did when you were during your time, like at UWC, that you think maybe they are connected to, or they are similar to the ones that are offered here at Earlham. For example, I can think of like Dance Alloy.
Okay.
UWC you had something more or less like that. Like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Yeah, one example I can give is, or if I would start off generally, there is a lot of ways to be involved on campus. So back in UWC, one of the things that I was able to be was like a house leader.
Mm-hmm.
We call them bomber leaders. The houses were called bombers. And so I was able to do that for a bit. And then here I'm also doing a convener. We actually we bought conveners for ASA, which is the African Student Association here at college. And so yeah, that's pretty cool that some of those things continue. What about you? What?
So I would say during my time at like UWC, just like what you mentioned earlier, like we didn't really like focus only like solely on academics, but then we also had like other activities. For example, in my UWC, we would call it like CAS, standing for like creativity, activity, and service.
Mm-hmm.
And then here at Earlham, I think we also have something like that, but then it's now like the EPIC centers, like where you can find, for example, the EPIC for like global education or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I remember, like in my first year at UWC, I was part of they would call it the bancas. So what we would do would just like go and then would take care of like horses which were abandoned.
Yeah.
And then here I think we have like those things, like if you connect with like the center of like
question
sustainability and
so is it CL environmental? Environmental leadership and sustainability.
Yeah, and then I would say for UWC there are about like people from about like 90 different countries, right? And then so it meant that we had like some form of like organizations representing, for example, maybe the African students, representing maybe students from Asia and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I found that like here at LM we also have more or less like the same thing, which is pretty cool. For example, there's like the SA, we have BSU, we have what's
SASA.
SASA, exactly.
SASA. So maybe I can pose a question. How did doing the IB prepare you for like university academics or the curriculum here at Earlham?
Actually, that's a good question. I'm going to be honest about it. So, when they are marketing about UWC, they only focus, you see people sitting like in the sun, like dancing
like
and stuff,
enjoying,
but then they don't really mention about the IB itself.
Actually. True.
For example, I remember I did like 6 IB subjects, and then 2 of my challenging subjects was like I was taking physics, and I also had like math AA. So I'm not gonna lie, the IB in general was like very tough because it meant like since the UWC in general, it doesn't really like focus on academics. It forces you to do extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
So it meant like I had like less time to actually sit down and study, right?
Yeah.
So it means I had to get organized. I had to come up with like proper time management skills so that I would manage my task, everything, right? Yeah. So it meant like when I came here, I didn't need anyone to tell me like, Tanaka, you have to start working on that like ESM paper or what. I just said that like in my brain because I knew how to organize my tasks. So pretty much. What about you? What would you say?
Yeah, I think honestly I agree. I also had like same 6 subjects. I remember I also struggled a lot with math. And so coming here, I already had like, let me start by saying like an idea of how to organize myself and organize my time and like prioritize, say, other different like assignments and stuff. But also I think one thing that IB gave, or one thing that we pick up from IBs is like writing, because we do a lot of writing, like papers and things like that. So by the time we come here, we've already practiced practice that, right? With the IAs and
Extended
extended
that's a good one.
essays. Yeah, so writing like these long essays is not necessarily as difficult, I think.
Yeah, actually, I remember like when I came here because in my like last semester we had like these classes that like every first year student had to take.
Yeah,
And
the
then
exams.
it's like we were being taught of like how you write a research paper, like the citation and everything. But then because of like the extended essay that every IB student is required to do, I already knew like how to do that, so it was like easier for me
it was
to
pretty
adapt.
easy. Yeah, so yeah, I agree. Yeah, so another question that I have for you is like, after now we're almost completing our first year, right? Is there something that you're worried about before arriving? Is there something that you're worried about before arriving here that you now don't worry about anymore?
So in general, like I would say, I'm just going to connect it to like my previous life, like at a UWC.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to UWC, the one in Germany, it was my first time like going outside Zimbabwe, right? So I was just like very anxious of like how is life going to be living away from home and meeting new people. So pretty much like before coming to the US, although I had lived like somewhere like which is not my country, I was just like a bit anxious, like how are the Americans going to see me? Then I was also like a bit worried because just like what I mentioned earlier, all of my information about the United States in general was based on like social media and the TV shows that I watch, and so. But then when I came here, actually, I realized that like maybe I was overthinking it, because like the people here are friendly from the faculty. Like my fellow students, it's like easy for you to like have your own people, and then it doesn't mean. I also realized that doesn't mean like if I'm in the US, I only have to make like American friends. It's still okay for me to make even friends from like other African countries, because we are also still different.
Yeah.
What about you? What would you say?
Yeah, I think similarly is maybe like the social aspects. Talking to people. I would consider myself a social person. I guess I could say that, but I do find some trouble like talking to new people and things like that. So I was a bit worried about how that was going to go. Am I able to make good friends? Am I able to like fit in, for lack of a better word, maybe, But now, after almost a year, I think it's safe to say that I fit in and things are going well.
That makes me think of a question. So would you say like going through UWC made you like to become like a more social person, which like helped you when you came here to the US, or like how is it?
Yeah, I'd say it definitely helped me because, again, in UWC, it's again really like tight-knit community, right? People from so many different countries, and what makes it like even more difficult is that now like we are like high schoolers, right? 16, 15, 16, 17 year olds, and so all those like emotions and stuff going on, sometimes you can say the wrong thing and cause issues, but even through all of that, like I was still able to learn basically how to talk to new people and things like that. So it definitely made making friends here easier. And then also knowing that there's also like UWC students at Earlham, that also kind of made it easy, because now I know there's already these people who kind of went through the same thing as me. So connecting with them is not as difficult as maybe some of the others.
Yeah, as people say, UWC is a cult. I have to confess, 75% of my friends here are like former UWC students. And then I would also say like, like when I went through my UWC journeys, like initially when I went to Germany for my UWC, I was someone who was like pretty much antisocial, But then they have this way of like how they do it. Like, for example, we had this thing that they could call buddies. So what you would go, like you would just find someone who you think like maybe you're interested in like talking or just like knowing, and then you ask them for like some tea time or something, and then you would go and then get some special Freiberg tea, and then you get to know them. So like when I came here, pretty much I wasn't like really intimidated getting to know like people. It was like I was actually surprised of myself, because I would just like walk by, introduce myself, and then that way I made connections.
Yeah.
I think it would also be nice if we tell people like how we even get to know about UWC. Maybe like how we ended up going to UWC in Tanzania when you said like you're from Uganda.
That's a good one. Yeah. So from Uganda, how did I end up in going to UWC in Tanzania? My dad's sister lives in Swaziland.
Yeah.
Right. So and in Swaziland there is UWC, Waterford, Kamlaba. Right. So three of my cousins went there. And that's basically how we first got to know about UWC. And this was like many, many years before I actually went.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents knew about UWC, but they were not really seriously thinking about like sending me until in 2020 when COVID happened and schools shut down. And the way our schools were is that we couldn't do work online. So for like a period of, I think it was like a month, schools are completely closed. We couldn't study, right?
Yeah.
We didn't do school. And so in that process, the school system slowly moved to online. Then when we were finally able to go back to physical school, my parents started to see that actually staying in this school is, we need to move to a place that's gonna maybe give us like some more opportunities, right? So that's when they started talking to my auntie about UWC, and then around that same time, the national committee applications also came out. So I talked to my mom. I was like, okay, Carlton, you should apply for this. So I applied, and then lo and behold, I was shortlisted, and then eventually, I got a slot. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I would say pretty much the same thing. Like, I remember like, so how the education system works in Zimbabwe is that like you have to go like to like 7 years of primary school, and then you have 6 years of high school.
Yeah.
And then in your 4th year of high school, you write like exams. And then if you pass those exams, you progress to do what they call like the advanced level. I think you have the same system in Uganda, right?
Yeah.
So I remember like in 2021, that's when I was supposed to write like my actually in 2020, that's when I was supposed to write like my O-level exam, which you take when you're like in your 4th year of high school, right?
Yeah.
But then, just because of the COVID thing, it meant like 2019, 2020, I didn't really like go to school, and then I was just doing my things like homeschooling. But then I managed to take those exams, and then I had like good grades. So what happened is like somehow, it's like, I'm not hating on the education system in my country, but then I feel like they force you, like I remember like before you, like when you had like exams and stuff, it's not like you're actually like getting the content, it's like you're cramming, right?
Yeah.
So I knew that maybe of course I have like 10 years, I've passed the exams, but then am I going to be able to implement these skills in my real life?
Exactly.
So I just felt as if like somehow, I don't know, by that time I didn't even know whether it was like possible for me to go to another school. I didn't even know about UWC, right? But then I just knew that somehow I'm not really like feeling the system that we have.
Yeah.
And then I know my brother went to a school called African Leadership Academy, which is like the one in South Africa.
Yeah.
So it's different from a UWC, but then more or less it has like the same like system where they have like, academics and non-curricular activities, right?
Yeah.
So when I saw that there's a possibility of those schools, that's when I started like going onto the internet, researching about like, okay, so when I'm done with my O-level, since I don't want to do the remaining 2 years in Zimbabwe, what are the possible solutions, right? And then I also applied to African Leadership Academy. Then I applied to UWC, right?
Yeah.
And then I remember I'm going to brag about this because during the interview, right, I remember there was like this guy who was like one of the best guys in Zim, because the maximum subject that we were allowed to write were only like 10. But then this guy wrote 20 subjects and he came out with like 20 straight A's, right?
Damn.
So when they were selecting us, it was like they shortlisted like 5 candidates from like 200 people, right?
Yeah.
And then at that time I couldn't even like speak properly. I was like so intimidated. Then so what we had to do for the final thing is like you had to present a project, and then before we went into the interview room, I was talking to this guy. He was like, oh, Tanaka was part of the Zimbabwean debate team and stuff. So I had like this strategy. So what I did is like, for my final pitch, I didn't like do like a speaking thing. So I realized that like, okay, so we were in the lockdown, right? People couldn't visit like the history part of Zimbabwe. They couldn't go and see like our natural monuments and stuff. So I worked on creating like a 3D digital museum.
Mm-hmm.
So for my final pitch, I went with my computer. I told them, so I'm going to do something different. Instead of me bragging about myself, I want to brag about my country.
Yeah.
I went with my 3D museum. I showed them everything. And then 2 weeks later, they told me, Tanaka, you're going to UWC in Germany.
Oh,
That's how it happened.
wow. That's a crazy story. Actually, for us, the way like our national committee does it is, I see you said you had to like pitch, come up with
Exactly,
an idea
yeah.
and then pitch it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for us, it's like the people who are shortlisted. After you get shortlisted, then you go to and do like physical interviews.
Mm-hmm.
But at least for us in Uganda, the way they interviewed us was just a day of interacting, right?
Okay.
Interacting with these other students, and then they see what kind of person you are through that. But then
Mhm.
throughout the day, they would take like one each person, then they would have like a 15-minute conversation with them, right? Or 15-minute interview.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was through that I then, like a few days after that, or like it was actually a few weeks after that, they called my dad and they're like, "Oh,
That goal.
you've actually been given a spot." But before that, actually, I was so scared because I thought I had not like made it because
Yeah.
we hadn't heard back from anything, and some of the friends I had made, for them they had already heard back. Like one person, "Oh, I'm going to Costa Rica," another person, "I'm going here, I'm going there," right?
Mhm.
So I was starting to feel like sad, and then one day they just called my dad and they're like, "Oh, Carlton has gotten a slot here in UWC, East Africa."
So how was it for you? Did you have the capacity to decide which country? Because I think, just to let people know, there are about like 18 different
Yeah.
UWCs
Yes.
across the world.
Yeah.
But for example, in my case, I wasn't like really allowed. They would just like, during the process, they would just like match you to like a UWC, because each UWC have like different focus. For example, the one in Germany focused on like sustainability.
Yeah.
But then for you, did you have the capacity to decide which one you wanted to go to, or how was it?
No. Yeah, so I think it's pretty much the same. For us, they just took like our profiles and they gave them to the different schools, and then the schools picked the students that they wanted. But for us, actually, we had like, they told us to make a list of like the schools we wanted to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they told us this. They gave us a list of the schools that had given offers for Ugandans, and then we would each write like a list. So actually, UWC East Africa was like far down on my list, and my number one I remember was Singapore. Yeah, but then I ended up in Tanzania.
On that note, if you have the capacity, would you have changed the country or you ended up enjoying
No, I ended up enjoying. It was close to home. The weather was always
close.
good. It was very similar to Uganda, Tanzania. It's very,
Okay.
very, very similar. So I almost didn't feel like I was in a different country. Yeah, so I definitely wouldn't change. How about you?
I would say, of course, initially when I saw the list, I was like, definitely, I don't want to go to a UWC in Africa, because I felt as if I go to that one, it's just like the same as home, I wanted to go somewhere like maybe in Europe, Singapore as well. But then when I went to Germany, I was like kind of like regretting my choice, because when the winter came, it was super cold. I wasn't really used to that like weather. And then the fact that, I'm just like, sometimes I'll just feel as if I'm so far from home, and then the homesickness
Like
hit hard and stuff.
yeah.
But in general,
True.
I wouldn't say that like changed my experience and stuff.
Mm.
But then something that is just good to mention.
Yeah, true. It's very interesting how like things, to get to that point, things almost happen like so fast. From now you start looking for opportunities, right? Because you said your brother went to African Leadership Academy.
Yeah.
And you start doing some research. You hear about UWC, so you like apply, then get shortlisted and all these things.
All right. So I'm curious, during your time at UWC, is there like a specific topic or a theme that you ended up getting interested in? For example, I know when I was at like the UWC in Germany, it focused on sustainability, right? So I ended up being passionate about like sustainable like projects that aim to reduce, for example, CO2 emissions. And right now, when I came here to Earlham, I managed to connect with Jamie, and then I tried to apply for the UBEC prize, but then that's a story for another day.
True, that's a story for another day. I would not say specifically like a specific thing like sustainability, but one thing that I got into was like just maybe getting involved in different kinds of projects, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I was able to be involved in was a documentary about creating awareness for
Ooh.
HIV and AIDS in Tanzania. So I was part of like the team that did that documentary. We went to a local hospital, a local like maternity hospital, and we like interviewed people. We shot, we edited, and then we showed the documentary at a local museum. And then I was also able to participate in like a TEDx event.
Oh,
So yeah, we held a TEDx at our school, and I was one of the like production people, like media and stuff. So that's like the kind of stuff that I got interested in. It's like being involved in projects and then being involved in the community in general.
Would you say for now, like Earlham is providing like some form of like pathway for you to proceed with that, or like how is it like, or when you came here you changed your interest, or?
I think does provide pathways because again through like the Epic Centers, there's so many different projects that are happening. Now one thing that I've gotten interested in is kind of coming up with my own personal projects, and so now I'm kind of looking into a number of things like starting businesses, starting just projects in general. So far, I'm still in the process of like coming up with ideas, but it's definitely something that I'm interested in.
All right.
Yeah, that I got interested in after coming to. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I would say on that note, like when I was in Germany, I became interested in like many, like for example, what I mentioned earlier, sustainability projects, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've been working on is like, I realized that like some communities, for example, in Zimbabwe where I come from, people are faced with the problem of like indoor air pollution, right?
Yeah.
So what this means, maybe people don't really understand, is like here in the US, many people have access to like electricity. So cooking is not even like something that people think of it because they just go on their electrical stoves, they cook here. But then in Zimbabwe, in some of the rural communities, people don't have access to that. So what they end up doing is like they end up just like going to cut down like maybe fresh trees so that they can come out with like open fires for cooking, right? So the problem with this is, of course, this is not like sustainable for the forest, but then not
for the forest,
even going to the forest for the
people.
because like when you're burning fresh wood, it means that carbon monoxide particles are going to be released, and then this causes like lung disease and stuff. So I managed to work like on this project where I created like solar powered stoves, and then so when I came here, I managed to connect with like people from the sustainability department, and like now I'm trying to see how that turns up into like a real like major project. So I think I would say Earlham is also like someone still helping me to get that step that I needed from like my UWC journey. So that's
I get that. Okay, that's pretty cool. Maybe we can also talk a little bit about how the Center for Global Education has kind of helped some of the international students at Earlham. Do you think that? Do you have anything to say about that?
I haven't really, like, to be honest, I haven't really interacted a lot with the Center for Global Education, but then maybe Center for like entrepreneurship, I would say, yeah. In general, like when I was working on this project, I worked with people like Jean, because I needed like some guidance on how I can, because of course this is in general a non-profit thingy, but then I need some, for everything to run, there's like some revenue that has to be generated. So of course by interacting with those people, they gave me some form of like advice how I can carry on. But then, I mean, this is still just the beginning. I'm still in my first year, so I'm still hoping
a lot of
to
time
do a lot of things.
to tighten things up.
Yeah. I was just gonna say on that note, I'm curious because I know in UWC we had like support systems. For example, I had my personal tutor. Like if I would get stuck in something, I would go and that would guide me. For example, be it career or be it personal stuff. So how has it been here at Earlham so far? Do you feel like you have like resources which you can go to and you can get some form of assistance, or be it career-wise or personal-wise, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good one because being so far away from home and from what you used to, it's important to have some kind of support systems. Yeah, so I think there are a number of helpful like centers and systems that Earlham has. In terms of career, I know that there's Epic Career Coaches and there's Epic Explorer, which like helps you to find out where you want to go career-wise, right? And then I know we also in health services we also have the counselors who are also really good with helping people like through maybe some kind of emotional I was gonna say turmoil, but that's a bit of a
Have you used those
word.
resources though?
No, I haven't been to like at least counseling so far. Yeah, but I guess also like just my friends in general have been quite helpful. I know in university, like in UWC, it was very much a situation where like we're living with our friends, right?
Yep.
Like literally, one of my best friends was my roommate. If I go out the door, next room is my other friend, right? All people just living in the same place, right? But here, because we're all doing different majors and we're all in terms of careers want to go in different directions, when it's like our schedules are very different, right? So we don't necessarily get to see each other as much. But then still being able to like meet and connect. Like if I have an issue, I'll talk to this person. If this person has an issue, they know that, oh, Carlton is there, I can talk to Carlton if I need help with this and this, yeah. So that kind of like friendship and relationships with people is also a good way to get like support when necessary.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I would say for me, yeah, like what you mentioned, for example, I've utilized the career coach because personally I'm someone who likes to know, like, I'm someone who likes to use the resources that I have, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was like the second week that I came here, I knew already I wanted to do like computer science and double majored business. So I went and met with Gabby. I was like, Gabby, so what are the resources that you have for me here? And then Gabby was like, oh, Tanaka is still a freshman. So I was like, no, we have to hit the ground running. And then she connected me with like, she suggested that maybe you should also like consider like joining the owner program on campus. And then she helped me with a lot of things. Like right now, let's say there are like opportunities that are open. She just like emails me like, Tanaka, you should consider applying to this. And that has been really helpful. For example, there was also like the Howard Prize. She told me about the Howard Prize. If you was to do this. And then to be honest, I haven't really gone to like counseling services, but then right now I feel the pressure academics is hitting, so maybe very soon I'll be knocking at their doors.
Yeah, I think I can relate as well with the career coach. I remember when I came, I knew I wanted to do computer science, but I knew I also wanted to do computer science, but like I wasn't sure what direction I wanted to take my career in necessarily, right? I knew I wanted to be a computer scientist and, do these like coding things and all of that, but like I didn't know the direction. So I went and I met with Gabby as well, and then she kind of helped me to think about different things. I told her that one of the things I'm interested in is, being a part of different projects and, maybe even starting like businesses and these kinds of things, right? Gabby connected me to like Gene and the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And then she also told me about the Holt Prize. And then she has this thing with like a system she was trying to put together with some books.
Yeah.
Where like you kind of journal and try to put like all your ideas on paper and things like that. So that has also helped me to find my direction, kind of.
And actually I would chip in out. I remember, I think it was Brian during our first week or second week when we had that class where it was like map your career. It was also like something that was like very useful, like because I managed to make the doors, like, because he forced us to come up with like a plan B, even then a plan C.
Yeah, true.
So it was
true, and I think that's kind of maybe how we actually got connected to Epic.
Exactly.
And in terms of working like the Epic podcast and eventually being able to be like hosting on the actual podcast, which is definitely something I was not expecting to do when I came. Yeah, so
that's pretty nice. And then I was just wondering, like, maybe it's a bit too early, but then have you already thought of like how you're going to use your Epic, or how's it?
I know I need to do an internship. I know I want to do an internship, but where and what exactly, I don't really have an idea yet. Yeah, I think probably in my sophomore year, I'll probably finalize. Like, yeah, I am in the process of finding out what I want to do. How about yours?
Yeah, like what I mentioned, I'm just going to continue mentioning this problem, like the one that so the one that I mentioned earlier about the whole cooking stalls and
Yeah,
stuff. So
yeah.
for now, it's like I'm just trying to get some more gather some more information on this, right?
Yeah.
And then let's say everything's like sorted out, I'm going to use that 5,000, and then I already got like funding from somewhere else, and then I'm just going to combine everything to
Mhm.
like kickstart this whole project in
Yeah.
Zimbabwe. So I was hoping to do it this summer, but then now I'm a bit hesitant. So maybe like when I'm maybe next year or in my junior year. So
Yeah. So is that gonna be like are you gonna set it up as a business, or is it gonna continue to be like non-profit?
So I aim to make it non-profit, you know,
Mhm.
so I'm just going to inject some funding into it, and then of course, like what I mentioned earlier, there has to be some revenue generated for operational cost and everything, but then it's basically
Maybe looking for some like some investors and things like
exactly,
that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I know we've talked about that and like just looking for other projects and stuff in general. So yeah, it's nice to know that like things are moving.
Would you have like any advice to people who are considering like applying to UWC or like Earlham as well, or
For UWC, I would definitely say apply for sure, and you know you probably will get in. You need to be just apply and see what happens. I think UWC now is becoming a bigger thing, kind of a more popular thing. So more and more people are applying, which means it's going to become more and more competitive. But I think that's also going to be a good thing. In terms of Earlham, I'll definitely also tell people if you're considering Earlham, then apply. If they're in UWC, some advice I'd give to someone like in UWC, right, or who's taking the IB, is this advice was given to me by my auntie. She said, Carlton, pick the easiest subjects and just like make sure you do your best. Make sure you get the highest grade possible in those subjects, because after that you'll pretty much be able to go anywhere you want, right? And now there's some like asterisk to that, because if you want to do like engineering, for example, you'll need to take physics or math and things like that. So you adjust it a bit here and there. But that would be my advice for students who are like maybe their first year of UWC. Do you have any advice for those guys?
definitely. I would say where I went wrong is like initially when I went to like UWC, I was like that guy. I was like, because I mean, maybe technically it's not my fault, because you know in Zimbabwe they tell you you're an engineer when you're already like 5 years old. Yeah, they tell you you're a doctor. So I had like that academic pressure that like sometimes I tend to forget about what was happening. You know, I would like forget appreciating the people that I had, just like the beautiful environment that was around me. So I would urge people, for example, maybe people who are already in UWC, maybe first year, second years, that despite the academic pressure, they should also try to like enjoy the present, because it's like a once in a lifetime opportunity. Where tell me of a place where you go and then there are like 90 nationalities and you're all the same age and you're living in the same place. So definitely they should enjoy that moment. Then I would also say when it comes to the application process to go to UWC, people should just be honest. Like they should just be themselves. There's no need to be afraid or like creating false activities and stuff. And then definitely if you have the qualities, they will select you and then they will match you to UWC. Then I would also say when it comes to applying to Earlham, especially for UWC students, if they are looking to continue like going to like a campus where people have intimate connections, where you actually know who this person is, or where you can do like community building activities, I would say Earlham is a good place for it.
Place for that,
then if you're also like someone like me who's not only trying to build like a life based on academics, but then you also want to gain other skills, Earlham is also good for that, because you know with the different centers you can like learn different skills that you can actually apply in your real life, rather than just like, okay, I have this physics diploma, but then when you can't really like talk to people and you can't really like share your skills to the people that they need them, you know. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think on that note, in terms of like Earlham's curriculum, the liberal arts is very, I want to say almost freeing, because like for example for us, like I know in Uganda and Zimbabwe, by the time you're 5 years old, they told you, okay, Carlton, you're going to be a doctor. Your sister is going to be a lawyer. Your mom was I don't know, a chemist. So you're going to be this. You're going to be this, right? Then you come here, and then you kind of have freedom to try out things, right? You pick maybe I want to be a photographer. I don't know. You try that out. If you like it, you can actually make a life out of that, right? If you don't like it, you have some time and space to actually try something else. So that freedom to be able to try new things and figure out where you stand is also a great thing about Earlham. Thank you everyone for watching the Epic Stories podcast. I think this was an interesting one. We tried something new. And you can find us on YouTube, podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the places you get your podcasts. Please do watch again soon. Thank you.